Hello, everyone, and welcome to A2I Dyslexia podcast. I'd like to welcome you all to our wonderful podcast that we've been producing over the years. I hope you are enjoying them, and I hope that you've listened to them and maybe applied some of the strategies in your daily life, one as a dyslexic or someone living with a specific learning difficulty. Today's podcast is titled, Is Dyslexia Misunderstood? We have a wonderful, wonderful guest with us, and I will introduce her in a second. We're going to have a conversation about, is dyslexia misunderstood? Now, some people may look at dyslexia in a different way. There are perceptions. Some people think it might be a learning difference. Some say it's a learning style. Some actually think, is it just reading and writing? It's more than that. My guest today is Elizabeth Wilkinson MBE. Elizabeth's got dyslexia and autism. Some people do have dyslexia and other specific, like myself. I have dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, Erlin syndrome. In this case, Elizabeth's got autism and she's also got dyslexia. And we will be having a conversation around, the specific learning difficulties that she's got. Now, without further ado, I'd like to say a very big thank you to the National Lottery Community Fund, Social Enterprise Support Fund, and Resonance Limited for the funding that we've been given to be able to produce these podcasts to go into many homes. I'd like to invite the lovely, amazing, wonderful Elizabeth Wilkinson MBE, who's dyslexia consultant, a dyslexia coach, a trainer, a teacher, advocate, and a campaigner. And she's been campaigning for over 22 years in this space. Elizabeth, welcome to A2I Dyslexia podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you on our podcast today.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here.
Do you know what? I was so blown away when I read your credentials and your biography and how many years you've been campaigning for dyslexia and specific learning. Please introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about your background and why do you do what you do?
Okay, so Elizabeth Wilkinson, but known as Ellie. So once you've met me, definitely call me Ellie. And I do what I do because, well, it's my specialist interest subject I'm autistic, as you've said in the introduction. And when I've been for my autism diagnosis, my mum had kind of said to the psychiatrist at the end, so, what does that mean? Because he'd said, have you got any questions, mum? I was an adult when I was diagnosed, but you have to have a parent with you if you have one alive. And he'd said, look, her specialist interest is dyslexia. Trust me, as a specialist interest, this is okay. This is a good interest to have. So it just brings me great joy to work with my fellow dyslexics and empower people and teach them and just watch people fly, really. It's lovely.
Wonderful. Now, you're a qualified teacher and you're a specialist learning difficulties teacher. So you've been working in this sort of area for the last, how many years, if you'd like to just remind me?
22 years. Yeah, it started off in 1999 and did an OCN dyslexia awareness course, which just suddenly sparked my interest. It was all of a sudden, there was this subject that everything made sense. This was me, this was most of my family, and I got it. And then the more reading I did into it, the more it made sense. And the more I realised that, as you will know, it's not rocket science to explain what dyslexia is and to help people understand how it affects them. And as we've said before, if you're in this field because you love it and you love helping people, that's easy to do. It's just working with people.
Absolutely. And I think the most beautiful thing for me as a dyslexic and all the other specific learning is meeting someone who felt like there was no hope.
Yes.
And then, of course, once you've worked with them and they've blossomed and they've managed to either complete their education or they're doing really well in a workplace or overall they feel really good about themselves. Yes. For me, that's what I call job satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's so beautiful to see someone come out their shell.
It is. I work with lots of adults and one recently he's been put on hold on his development plan, and I know that the company or the organisation he's working for are putting things in place for him. And I know that learned helplessness that you have from school, where when you get something wrong, it's failure, was kicking in a little bit. But I also knew from his organisation standpoint, the things they were putting in place for him meant they wanted him to succeed. So I've been able to be that bridge between the two and just be able to say to him, trust me on this now, you're going to achieve. If this is what you want to do, you have everything in place to do it. And it's really lovely. The reason I'm mentioning this is I welled up and got really emotional because I can see that potential. So like you, being able to see that happen is just lovely. You know, when it works and I want to sit and clap my hands.
Oh, fantastic. Now, Elizabeth, I'm actually sort of reading your bio as I'm speaking to you as well. It's not been plain sailing for you, has it? Let's be honest. You've had your fair challenges with dyslexia and autism. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, a few, but you know.
It just leads me on to the first question. So what's a typical day for you living with dyslexia and autism? What's a typical day for you?
It's funny, I looked at that question and thought, well, there's no typical day really blasé I was. And then I thought, well, actually, it's interesting because as an autistic or as somebody who's with autism or autistic, I have this conversation with my mum who's 74 and has just been diagnosed before Christmas as autistic, and the difference that's made to her. And we were saying that, you know, as autistics, we love routine, we crave routine, but we get bored with routine. So it's like, bored, have I got to do that again? But generally my day will start with getting up. I will go for a walk, then I'll have a shower, and then I'll have a coffee, and I'll do my gratitude list. And probably 5 days a week I do a gratitude list of all the things, not all the things because never time for that, but just at least 8 things or 10 things that I'm grateful for. And then I'll work. And of course, work being the thing that brings me the most joy, I spend a lot of time at work. So and then I'll finish work, I'll have some food, go to bed, get up the next day and repeat.
I bet you're a bit like me, Elizabeth, or Ellie, shall I say, where you're constantly working, you don't even realise it's like 11 o'clock or 12 midnight. And you're like, oh, I've got to go to bed now. And then you're so excited the next day to be able to kind of carry on from where you left off. It's such a beautiful, I mean, I always say, I love my job. It comes with huge challenges, don't get me wrong. There are days when I think, I don't even know where to begin. Because it is quite admin paper-based. You know, in terms of running an organization. And it can be challenging, but like I said, when somebody successfully, you know, reach their goal, it makes you feel like, yes, I've done my job.
Absolutely. Definitely it does, doesn't it? And I don't know about you, but working with people who are like you every day, what a joy. You don't actually have to go out into the real world. I just work with people like us all day every day, which is just amazing.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much for that, Ellie. What are some of the strengths of someone living with dyslexia and autism? What do they bring to the table, do you think?
Well, again, one of those things is a flippant art, so it'll be different for everybody. But just thinking about the people I work with, strengths will be entrepreneur, visual, ability to get answers to questions quickly, and just, I work with a lot of firefighters who, you know, if I ever need a fire crew to get me out of an accident or some curious position, then I definitely would want the dyslexic fire crew because they think of alternative solutions straight away. And it's that just to coin a phrase, the outside the box thinking, empathy, leadership, just so many skills. And I know they're not exclusive to just dyslexics or autistics or the neurodiverse, whatever term people are using nowadays, but there is certainly a higher percentage of, or a high caliber of people with those talents. I think personally, just creative, innovative,
amazing.
And the autism would be just the focus, I presume is the thing really. I was thinking about it today, and it's just the focus on things and the drive to achieve, which, you know, if it's in a good way, is a good thing. If it's climbing to the top of a lamppost to check the light bulb numbers, not so much a good thing and quite dangerous. But when it's dyslexia, that's not a bad thing.
Wonderful. That's really amazing. Now, this brings me on to the main subject that we're going to be talking about on this podcast. In your opinion, would you say that dyslexia is misunderstood?
Generally, yes, most definitely. Yeah.
Now, tell me about maybe, you know, some of the things that you heard. I mean, you've been in this field for 22 years. I'm a baby in this area. I've been here 6 years. So tell me some of the things you've experienced over the years. I mean, when you tell people you've got dyslexia and autism, what's people's reaction?
I love the immediate reaction. It's not quite so much anymore, but it used to be, well, you don't look like you've got dyslexia. It's like, well, that's because I don't have two heads. It's just bizarre. And and then people had realised what they'd said. And I think I learned early on was that if we don't understand something, then the things we're going to say might appear rude, ignorant. So actually, my friends and my family will always say, so patient is what they'll always say. But, people say rude, or it's like, yeah, but explain something to somebody. Take that opportunity to explain what it is, and then hopefully they won't make that mistake again. So yeah, it's the misnomer of talking to HR departments that will assume that their dyslexic employees can't read, write, and spell. You're like, well, actually, my dad can read a book in 2 hours. My mum can spell really, really well. So no, that's not the case. Untap those talents.
It's just one of those conditions that's quite complex, isn't it? Dyslexia. I can speak in terms of dyslexia because that's the condition I live with. And It can be very, very complex because there are days when I can just do whatever you give me to do. Every task, I can do it. And there are days when I go to work and I don't even know where to begin. I'm just in another planet completely.
The good days and the bad days.
Good days and bad days. Just like everybody have a good day or bad day at work. But what's
but on steroids.
What's really interesting is it's okay because I work for me or I work for myself. I'm the founder of this organization. But it's always like when I look back and look at the corporate industry I used to work in, it was always perhaps seen different. Is she lazy? Doesn't she want to do it for whatever reason? Is she running away from the task because whatever it might be that their perception may be? And I always felt like even sometimes I get confused with dyslexia. Like, where are you today, dyslexia? Are you here or are you not here? Because I don't know what I'm doing half of the time. It can be very confusing with directions and where I'm going and dates and times and where I'm supposed to be. Do you ever experience anything complex like that in your daily work?
Yeah, I do. And it's interesting because like you, I work for myself, so I don't have other people around to organise. And I find that even though I run my own business and I work for myself, I still do have to do a certain amount of paperwork for other people. But I do surround myself with tasks and jobs that I'm very good at and excel at. But even so, I still get sidetracked or sidelined, what's the word I'm looking for, blindsided by dates and times, appointments. If my one strategy isn't working for organisation, I have to practice what I preach and I have to then implement another strategy. So the plus side of working with people like me is that they get it, so there's not too much pressure. But there is a lot of pressure because they then have to be positive and work the same way. So I'm not really answering the question very well, am I?
No, you are. You're doing great, Ellie.
Yeah,
you're doing really great.
Definitely there are those things, but I tend to just practice what I preach. And the fact that on those bad days is that you just have to put the coping strategies in place and they are going to happen. And you can either beat yourself up about them or you can put your strategies in place, be kind to yourself, and then know that tomorrow or the next day is going to be the day that you're getting everything done and you're doing really well and you're achieving more than everybody else. Because on the good days, we actually achieve a lot more than most neurotypical people achieve. No disrespect, neurotypical people, but neurodiverse people are pretty cool.
Wonderful. So in your daily work of 22 years, Ellie, what sort of words have you heard from anybody or someone you've worked with in the past, or if it's a student or anyone that you've worked with, how they've described dyslexia, and is it misunderstood for them? I mean, I find the whole thing quite complex, I'll be honest with you. I live the condition and I do find it quite complex sometimes. You just go with the flow, don't you? Every day is a new day. So have you had any students or anybody that you've worked with that have kind of asked questions like, well, I don't actually understand what this condition is?
everybody all the time. And in my opinion, have you heard of Dr. Tilly Mortimer?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yes. So I read her book, the original one, Dyslexia and Learning Styles, with the black front cover with the white writing on, not long after it was before my diagnosis. And it just made sense to the core deficits of dyslexia. And I know there's people out there that say that it's not just that, but actually, when you look at a diagnostic assessment, these are the major areas that are tested: short-term memory, phonological awareness, and automaticity. And once you explain what those three are, and you understand how those impact on you, I think personally, and for everybody I've worked with, life starts to make sense, because you suddenly understand that, yes, your short-term memory isn't that great. So you put strategies in place, or you work out how you remember things. Your automaticity isn't that great. So that learning new skills and acquiring new skills can be exhausting. But actually, what's really great about us is our long-term memory is awesome. And our visual memory and auditory memory, depending on where your skills and your strengths lie. So once you work out where those strengths are, they compensate, and you can overbalance for the shortcomings or the short-term deficits, or all the bits that cause us issues. That's not to say it isn't exhausting, and you don't know when you wake up one morning before you've even opened your eyes that it's going to be a bad day. We do. But we know that, so it's putting those things in place, and it's having that confidence to say, do you know what? I am good at what I do, but today is not a good day.
Wonderful. Now, we have to celebrate our successes.
Absolutely.
Ellie, because I think, I'll speak for me. Sometimes when people go, oh, Elizabeth, you're doing really well, and well done for this and that, oh, it's all right, fully another day's work.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been awarded MBE. And I think that's really, really awesome.
Thank you.
Because part of the work you do, you do it out of the goodness of your heart. We know you get paid for your own business.
Yeah.
But the information day and your dyslexia awards and all the other bits you do, is your own money that you generate into that. And you do that out of the goodness of your heart. Am I right in saying that, Ellie? You
do. And you're quite right there. You've called me on my own advice there, that I have to practice what I preach. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I've got your number.
And I really want to say congratulations for the MBE award that you've been given. Well done. And you're a true inspiration to the dyslexia community. And we really want to say thank you, Ellie, for the amazing work you've done in the last 22 years, and perhaps another 22 years or more to continue doing what you do.
It just, like you, with what you do, and I've said to you before, the reason I reached out to you in lockdown was because I could see that you're driven to affect change, and that pure of heart with what you do. And it is that very thing there. It's what drives you, and it brings me great joy to do what I do and work with the people I work with. And as you say, you get up in the morning and you're glad to go to work, and that's why you stay in the office till midnight or half midnight and do whatever, and then stumble into bed and get up the next morning going, yes, I'm going to work today.
Thank you so much, Ellie. Is there any advice or anything you want to leave us with before we come to the end of our podcast?
I would say speak. Talk to people, have conversations, celebrate the things that you achieve, talk to people who are dyslexic, get people in your community who are dyslexic to talk to the children who are dyslexic, have them visit the schools and do talks, and just be proud. And if I may shamelessly say, nominate them for a dyslexia award. Because, those dyslexia awards are about shining stars for adults and teenagers. So you've got those people that are they shine because they do amazing things for dyslexics, clearly. And then
wonderful
for the good educators, just celebrate, because the more we celebrate and the more we talk about it and the more we have the conversations and we have that safe space to ask questions, and it just changes lives. And just you keep doing what you're doing, because it's lovely to know you're out there.
Oh, thank you, Ellie. Thank you. Now, when is your Dyslexia Awards? When is it this year?
The awards are currently open for nominations until the 14th of July. Then the actual awards take place on the 24th of September, Ingenuity in Coalbrookdale in Telford. Every finalist gets a free ticket to attend. So we really aren't about making any money. We don't sell any tickets to anybody that isn't involved. And most tickets are not sold anyway. We're going to this year be live streaming, so anybody that can't make it, whether they're poorly with COVID or they can't make it because it's too far, then they get to do that. Say if a teacher was nominated in a school, they could actually screen the awards in their school hall and have everybody attend. So it's potential for so much now, which is just lovely.
That's really amazing. Thank you very much, Ellie, for coming on to A2I Dyslexia podcast. I'd like to say a very big thank you to our listeners as well. And also a great thank you to Yola, who's behind the scenes producing our podcast. And also a very big thank you to Onye-Morris, who's a researcher, all working behind the scenes to make this possible. I always say that you see the face at the front, but there's great people behind all this that makes it happen. And we want to say thank you to everybody. We also want to say a very big thank you to our funders again. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, with a different topic. Bye-bye for now.
The Aspire to Inspire All Things Dyslexia podcast is funded by National Lottery Community Fund, Social Enterprise Support Fund, and Resonance Limited. It's presented by Elizabeth Tashi and produced and distributed by Salt and Pepper Productions.